There is a big reason why I've been able to continue living here for the past 32 years, and it's got very little to do with me. Okay, so it's Tuesday afternoon and it's cold, which I like. It was a little too warm for me a couple of weeks ago, last week, but over the weekend, the temperature plummeted, and I mean plummeted. And so it's now proper winter weather, which makes me happy. I got some good news on Friday from the doctor. The week before, he'd told me my toe had gone crooked in the x-rays, and it was pretty noticeable. I saw it myself. So last week I took it extremely easy. I was extremely cautious and only went out to walk when I needed to, when I went to the dentist or, my doctor for my toe. And on Friday he told me it was straight again, and it was. I saw the x-ray myself. So I'm very happy about that. And on the weekend, I was not happy because I still took it easy because of I don't want to risk, knocking my toe in the wrong direction again. So I stayed in all weekend, got a lot of work done, didn't finish everything I wanted to. I ended up doing that yesterday instead of vlogging. This is the first time in a while that I have come out just for the sake of taking a walk. Should I? Probably not, but I am going kind of stir crazy, and it's been 4 weeks now. Well, tomorrow will be exactly 4 weeks since I broke my toe, so I feel kind of safe. The x-rays were looking good, the ultrasound was looking good, everything was really nice Friday, so yeah. Then again, last time I said I felt confident about walking, I ended up with a crooked toe, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, 4 weeks of light activity, and that little hill I just came up, it's not steep, and I've walked it millions of times. I'm a hiker, but it got my breath. So I'm really, really, really eager to get back on my feet like normal and get my walking lungs back, if you know what I mean. But today, I'm not here to talk about my walking lungs or my toe. The main thing I want to talk about today is something that's been on my mind lately. And, every evening before I call it quits for the night, or early morning, as the case may be, I usually spend an hour or so browsing YouTube. And lately I've been watching some day in the life videos from people living in Korea. I'm curious how people see Korea, people who have come here, within the last decade. What's the noob experience like for them? How is it for them to adapt to living here compared to what it was like for me and people I knew when I first got here in the early 90s. So when I first came to Korea, it wasn't by choice. I was in the Army, US Army, and they sent me here. It was my first duty station. I wound up north, not at the DMZ, south of the DMZ, but north of Uijeongbu at a place called Camp Casey. I was a medic, and I was assigned to a tank battalion, so I worked in the aid station. I extended. I was only supposed to be here for a year when they first sent me here, but I extended for one more, and then for one more, and that's when I did the transfer to Seoul. So I did a total of 3 years of service here in the military, and I actually took an early out. I got out about 6 months early. They were downsizing at the time, and I qualified, so I took the early out, and I stayed. I didn't leave Korea. I did all my out processing right here in the country. I had to ask permission to do it, but yeah, they granted it. I didn't realize it at the time, but that first 3 years I was here, there was a huge advantage for me that people like English teachers or, business people coming here to work for international or Korean companies, they don't really have. And that was, I was able to experience Korea and Korean culture at a distance, as much of a distance as I needed to. If you're an English teacher, you get a sponsorship, you get your visa, and they bring you here, boom, you're right into the economy. You're living right on the economy, right? You're into the Korean culture. You are part of the Korean society. You're living it, breathing it, seeing it every day. And it's kind of like, throwing you into the swimming pool to teach you how to swim. Yeah, they had people around to help them, their coworkers usually. But I've seen this firsthand. For a lot of people, it was a bumpy start. It took time to adapt. Some people just never were able to do it. I've known more than one person who came here to teach English who was gone before the end of their contract for one reason or another. I had this buffer, right? It was my choice how far into it I wanted to get. If I wanted to stay in the shallow end, I could. If I wanted to get into the deep end, I could. If I wanted to just sit on the side and watch, I could, right? Because living on the Army base was basically a mini America, right? And even right outside the gates, no matter which Army base you were at in Korea, right outside the gates, there was always a little ville, they called them, where everybody spoke English. All the shop owners, all the restaurants, all the bars, everybody there spoke English. And you step outside that invisible border, well, yeah, you were gonna find a lot of people who didn't speak English, and so a lot of the soldiers would just, stay within those bounds. A lot of people never left the base, without being coerced. But me, I was an explorer, and so with other like-minded friends, I had a roommate who was also an explorer, and we explored. We went outside those boundaries, even sometimes when we didn't really have permission to do so. Now, the downside to that was that I didn't need Korean, so I didn't learn Korean. So for the first 3 years I was here in the Army, I didn't need Korean at all. And when I got out of the Army, I still had access to the base for a while, but I still didn't need Korean because I could still go onto the base, I could still hang out in the Ville area. In Seoul, it was Itaewon. And of course, that was the foreigner district. It wasn't just the soldiers hanging out there, it was people from all over the world. So yeah, you got lots of English there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's snowing. I wasn't expecting that today. You're definitely not going to see it there. Anyway, there is a nice view to see here, though. Ooh, good timing, some birds. That international community in Itaewon, that is why I'm still here. I was a 20-something young man, incredibly irresponsible. Yeah, okay. I like to tell people that I grew up in Korea because basically I did. But I didn't save money, I drank too much, I lost a couple jobs because of my drinking. On 3 occasions, I suddenly found myself without a place to sleep. And I had a lot of self-inflicted difficulties. Oh yeah, you too, thank you. Now, if I had stayed back home in the States, I would have had a built-in support network and family and friends. And they would have both supported me and knocked me over the head a few times to try to get me on track. Now, here in Korea, within that international community and in the community on base, with the context I had there, the not just the soldiers, but well, not many of the soldiers, because all the ones I knew left not long after I got out of the Army, but the civilian contractors that worked there, I had made contacts with a lot of them. So all of these guys, they were, this whole community, they supported me, and no questions asked, right? They didn't knock me over the head like my family would have. Maybe they should have, but yeah, nobody did. If anybody you knew needed help, you helped them. And so there was always a room where I could crash and a roommate available. Somebody was always looking for someone to share the rent. There was always somebody who knew about a gig so that I could, fill up the coffers to pay my rent or whatever. We all helped each other, and it was like one big extended family. Now, it wasn't always peaches and cream, it wasn't always a bed of roses. There were people, there was conflict, you're dealing with people, but overall it was pretty amazing. And I think, we were all kind of in the same boat. We were all away from home. Some people were more experienced at it than others. And we were all trying to learn how to survive here. And we helped each other, we taught each other. And because of that, I was able to make it through my first several years here until I reached a point where I could, stand on my own 2 feet. I love this. I sometimes wish that the fence wasn't here. I think if you look at this from below, it's like a sheer cliff face, and I think this probably used to be a quarry. That's what it looks like. There's something similar over by Dongmyo Station, Changshin Station, between there and Changshin-dong. It's, I know for sure that was a quarry, and I'm pretty sure that's what this used to be. They just dug out all the rock from the hillside, and then these little houses filled in the space. Some of these are very old. You can't really see them. The lower ones, the red roof and the blue roof there, these are all quite older than the others. But the same thing happened over in Changshin-dong at the quarry there. So I'm pretty sure that's what this is. Now, eventually, I kind of drifted out of that international community, lost that network because, well, I lost access to the Army base. I stopped going to Itaewon when I met my wife. Well, after we got married anyway. So, that huge network of people that I had built up, eventually faded away. And I had a job for several years where I basically worked alone. I would get sent out to different companies around the city. And my boss, the company I worked for, he's a friend of mine actually. He had other employees who did the same thing, but in the, 15 years I worked for him, I only met one of them. Now, why am I talking about this today? Well, like I said, I've seen some, videos from people who live here on YouTube lately, and some of them have talked about their struggles, even some traumatic experiences that they've gone through here. And I've noticed that they all have something in common, and that is that they have friends here. They're part of a community here. They've built up these relationships and become part of this network. And that support has helped them get through their struggles for the most part. But, I don't know what it's like to, say, move from New York to LA or San Francisco, right? From one coast to the other. I'm sure that there are some struggles people go through there. At a foundational level, it's the same thing. You're cutting off your support network completely, right? And having to build a new one. But going abroad, you've got the added stress and pressure of a different culture. And in some cases, like this one, a different language. And in Korea, the differences can sometimes be extreme. And again, going into the back in my day mode, I think they're less extreme today than they used to be. But they are still different. And you're leaving your comfort zone, you're cutting off your support network, you're coming to a place where you probably don't speak the language, maybe you've studied a little bit of it, and you're going to have to learn how to swim, basically. You've been thrown into the deep end and said, swim. And so it's not for everyone. And I have known a number of people who couldn't make it, and they went back in the middle of their contracts or whatever. But yeah, I've been very, very, very fortunate to have met the people that I have known here. Many of them who are no longer here in Korea, some of them who are no longer here at all. A lot of the people I knew back in the 90s have since passed away. And that is a sobering thought. But I do miss them. And I've lost touch with more people than I can count. And you know, that's one of the hard parts of being an expat and being a part of the expat community is so many of the people you meet will be gone eventually. It might not be next year, it might not be 5 years, it may be 10 years down the road, but a lot of the expats you meet will leave Korea eventually. And I think everybody seems to go through this, well, I say everybody, I mean every expat that I've met here, it seems like everybody seems to go through this point where should I stay or should I go? And I was actually at that point right before I met my wife. I had managed to make it through those few years, but I was only just starting to stand on my feet. It was 1997 or so, early 98, and I was wondering, you know, is this the right move? Am I in the right place? I've been partying hard for the last few years, and I haven't really done anything else. What am I doing here? I think I should go back and get serious about my life. But instead, I met my wife and got serious about my life here. Now, I've got another support network of Korean friends and my wife's family, but don't really need it so much now. And my wife and I are able to support, you know, her niece and her mother. And when her family needs it, we can support them. And so the tables have turned. So to anyone who's going abroad to live, whether it's here in Korea or somewhere else, I strongly suggest you don't shun the expat community when you first get here, or there, wherever it may be. Embrace the community. Be a part of it. You know, I think back when I was here, being a part of the expat community meant going out a lot, having a lot of drinks. Korea is a heavy drinking culture, and the expat community here was a heavy drinking culture. But I think these days there are a lot more opportunities to get involved without the alcohol if that's not your thing. And it would have been great if it wasn't my thing back then. But yeah, embrace the expat community, be a part of it, because they're going to help you get through when you have difficulties and when you struggle. You're going to need them. And they're going to need you. They very may well need you. You might be the guy or the lady with a room when somebody needs one. So that was a nice chat. Thanks for listening. I'm really surprised by the snow today. I hope you can see it. I'm probably sure you can't, but anyway, trust me, it is snowing. And it's not as cold as I thought it would be. At least it doesn't feel as cold as I thought it would feel. I did come prepared today. I have a heat pack, a hot pack, whatever they call it, in that little special shoe. It's strapped into my brace. It's the red thing. I don't know if you can see it, but it works wonders. It makes my left foot feel better, warmer than my right foot, which is pretty good. So yeah, and I'm gonna cut it right here. I'm gonna go get some coffee and head back home. I've got some more work to do. I've got to get this video out today and got to get started on another video for my job. And later tonight, I'm gonna get a session of Fortnite in, read a book, and try to get to bed early. I've been staying up too late lately. I want to get back on our early morning schedule because as soon as I'm able to walk again, I'm going to be leaving the house as early as I can for like hours at a time just to get all of this out of my system. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. See you next time. Bye-bye.